Emily sighed. Daniel, it's not what you think. I almost laughed. Because that sentence is undefeated in the Hall of Fame of terrible excuses. Okay, I said. Then explain it. Another pause. Mark rubbed his face. Emily stared at the floor. Finally, I connected the last piece of the puzzle. Wait, I said slowly. And suddenly something clicked in my memory. 2 years earlier, at a college reunion party, Mark and Emily had disappeared for about 20 minutes. At the time they said they were grabbing drinks. But when they came back, things felt different. I looked at Mark. How long? He didn't answer. I stepped closer. How long has this been going on? Emily finally spoke. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of dinners together. Game nights. Inside jokes. While they were secretly sleeping together. I felt the anger rise. But strangely, it cooled almost immediately. Because in that moment I realized something important. These two people thought they had outsmarted me. And the truth? They were incredibly sloppy. So let me get this straight, I said. You're cheating on me, with my best friend. Emily's voice softened. We didn't plan for this to happen. Mark nodded. It just kind of happened. Of course it did. Adultery's favorite explanation. Gravity. So I took a deep breath. Then I did something neither of them expected. I smiled. Okay, I said. You win. Both of them looked confused. What? Emily asked. I'm done, I said. Just like that. No screaming. No dramatic scene. I walked to the door. But before leaving, I looked back at Mark. You know what the funniest part is? What? He asked cautiously. You think you stole my wife. I shrugged. But honestly, you just inherited my problem. Then I walked out. Divorce papers were filed 2 weeks later. Emily moved in with Mark almost immediately. At first it seemed like they had one. New couple. Fresh start. But here's where things get interesting. Update, 2 years later. Life has a funny way of balancing the scales. Over the next 2 years I focused on myself. Gym. Career. Therapy. Turns out heartbreak is a pretty effective productivity tool. Meanwhile, Mark and Emily's relationship started cracking. Constant fights. Money issues. Trust problems. Which is ironic. Because if someone cheats with you, they'll eventually cheat on you. Then one night my phone buzzed. A text. From Emily. Hey, can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time. Apparently Mark had cheated on her. With a coworker. Shocking, I know. She said she made a mistake. Said she missed me. Said she wondered if we could try again. I typed a response. Then deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that one too. Finally I sent just one message. Mark's problem now. Then I blocked the number. Look, I'm not perfect. Maybe that was petty. Maybe it was closure. But here's the thing I've learned. When someone shows you exactly who they are, believe them the first time. Anyway, that's my story. So I'm curious what you guys think. If your spouse cheated on you with your best friend, and 2 years later they came back begging for another chance, would you forgive them? Or would you do exactly what I did? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy dramatic real stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Because, trust me, this one wasn't even the craziest story I've lived through. But the story doesn't actually end there. Because karma is patient, but it's also incredibly thorough. About 3 months after I blocked Emily, one of our mutual friends called me. Dude, he said, half laughing, half shocked, have you heard what's happening with Mark? I hadn't. And honestly, I wasn't planning to ask. But curiosity is a powerful thing. So I said, no. What happened? There was a short pause. Then he said, Emily left him. I leaned back in my chair. Already? Yeah, he said. Apparently the coworker thing wasn't just a fling. Mark had been seeing her for almost a year. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not a loud villain laugh. More like the quiet kind you make when the universe delivers the most predictable plot twist in human history. Think about it. Two people who started their relationship with betrayal, shocked when betrayal happens again. Shocking. Apparently things got messy. Emily moved out. Mark lost the house because he couldn't afford the payments alone. And the co-worker? Yeah, that didn't last either. From what I heard, she dumped him a few months later. So in the end, Mark managed to destroy his best friendship, his reputation, and his relationship. All for something that lasted less than a year. That's almost impressive. Meanwhile, my life went in a completely different direction. I switched companies, got promoted, moved into a new place downtown. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling angry about the whole situation. Which, surprisingly, was the best revenge of all. Because when people betray you, they expect one of two reactions. Either you chase them, or you collapse. They never expect the third option. Indifference. No yelling. No revenge schemes. Just moving on like they never mattered. And that's exactly what I did. But every now and then, I still think about that night. Standing on Mark's porch, looking at the two people I trusted most in the world, and realizing, in about 10 seconds, that my entire life was about to change. At the time it felt like everything was falling apart. But looking back, that moment was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Because sometimes the trash doesn't take itself out. Sometimes your best friend does it for you. Anyway, that's the full story. And now I'm curious what you guys think. If your best friend and your spouse betrayed you like that, would you have reacted calmly the way I did? Or would you have completely lost it? Be honest. Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about betrayal, karma, and life hitting people with the consequences of their own decisions, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Because, trust me, the internet is full of people making terrible choices. And somehow, their stories always find their way here. But before I wrap this up, there's one last detail that makes this whole situation even more surreal. About a month after everything collapsed for Mark, I ran into him completely by accident. It was a Saturday afternoon at a grocery store. I was grabbing a few things for the week when I noticed someone staring at me from the end of the aisle. It was him. Mark looked different. Not in a dramatic movie way, just tired. Like life had been quietly grinding him down for a while. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he walked over. "Hey man," he said awkwardly. "Not Daniel. Not my full name. Just man." I nodded. "Hey." There was an uncomfortable silence between us, the kind that used to never exist when we were younger. Finally he said something that honestly surprised me. "I messed everything up." No excuses. No blaming Emily. Just that. I looked at him for a second. And the strange thing was, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just distant. Like he was someone from a completely different life. So I shrugged and said, "Yeah, you did." Then I grabbed my groceries, walked past him, and left. And that was the last time I ever saw my best friend. The worst betrayal in my life didn't come from a stranger. It came from my best friend, and my wife. And the crazy part, for months they both sat at my dinner table, laughed at my jokes, and looked me straight in the eyes like nothing was wrong. But the moment I realized what was happening, I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I just started paying attention. And that's when their entire lie started falling apart. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old, and until about 2 years ago I believed I had the kind of life most guys are working toward. Good career. Nice house in the suburbs. Married to a woman I thought loved me. And a best friend I trusted like a brother. My wife, Emily, and I had been together for 8 years. Married for 5. We weren't one of those overly dramatic couples. No screaming matches, no constant breakups. Honestly, things felt stable, comfortable. And my best friend Mark had been around the entire time. Mark and I met in college. Same dorm, same terrible taste in cheap beer, same dumb sense of humor. Over the years, he basically became family. He was the guy who stood next to me as my best man at my wedding. Yeah. That detail becomes important later. For years, everything felt normal. We'd have barbecues in the backyard. Emily would make her famous lemon chicken, Mark would bring whiskey, and we'd sit outside talking about work, sports, stupid internet drama. If someone told me back then that those two people would destroy my marriage, I would have laughed in their face. The first strange moment happened on a random Tuesday night. I came home from work earlier than usual. Around 5:30. Normally Emily was home before me, but that day the house was empty. Not unusual. What was unusual was that her car was in the driveway. Her purse was on the kitchen counter. But her phone was gone. I texted her. "Hey, where'd you disappear to?" No reply. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Eventually she walked through the door looking slightly out of breath. "Hey," I said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she said quickly. "Just went for a walk." A walk. Without her phone. Without telling me. And somehow she looked like she had just finished a sprint. I didn't push it. Not yet. But something about it stuck in the back of my mind. Then about a week later, something else happened. Mark came over to watch a football game. Halfway through the second quarter, Emily's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She was in the kitchen. Mark glanced down at it. For half a second, his face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. The kind of look someone makes when they recognize something, and wish they didn't. I picked up the phone. Locked screen. But the notification preview was still there. The sender name wasn't saved. Just a number. And the message said, "Miss you already." I stared at it for a second. Then Emily walked back into the room. "Your phone buzzed," I said calmly. She picked it up, read the message, and quickly flipped the phone over. "Just spam," she said. "Spam. Right." Mark suddenly became very interested in the football game. That's when my brain started doing what I do best. Connecting dots. I didn't accuse anyone. Not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. Over the next few weeks, I noticed patterns. Emily suddenly had girls' nights more often. Mark started texting me less. But weirdly, he stopped coming over as much too. Almost like he was avoiding the house. That's when the real panic started. Because when something doesn't make sense, there's usually a reason. And I needed to know what it was. So I started investigating. Nothing crazy. Just logic. Step 1. Timing. One Friday night, Emily told me she was going out with her friend Jessica. Around 8 p.m. she left the house. At 8:17, I texted Jessica. "Hey, quick question. What wine should I bring next time we all hang out?" She replied almost immediately. "Wine. Yeah. For tonight." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally she replied. "Oh. Emily didn't come here tonight." My stomach dropped. But I kept my tone casual. "Oh, okay. Maybe I mixed up the plans." I put my phone down and stared at the wall. So my wife wasn't with Jessica. Which meant she was somewhere else. And I had a pretty good guess where. But I needed proof. So I called Mark. He picked up after 2 rings. "Hey man," he said. "Hey," I replied. "What are you up to tonight?" A pause. Then he said, "Just relaxing at home." That's when I made my decision. Because Mark lived 15 minutes away. And if he was lying, I was about to find out. I grabbed my keys and started driving. The entire way there my brain kept repeating one sentence. There's no way. But when I turned onto Mark Street, I saw something that made my hands tighten around the steering wheel. Emily's car, parked right outside his house. For a few seconds I just sat there in silence. Because in that moment, everything clicked. The late nights. The secret texts. The weird tension. All of it. Phil. I walked up to the front door. And knocked. 30 seconds later Mark opened it. The look on his face told me everything. Pure panic. "Daniel." Then I heard a voice behind him. My wife's voice. "Who is it?" And at that exact moment, I realized my best friend hadn't just betrayed me. He had been doing it right under my nose. And the confrontation that followed? Let's just say, that's when the lies really started to collapse. Mark stood in the doorway like a guy who had just seen a ghost. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" he asked. I kept my voice calm. "Funny," I said. "I was about to ask you the same thing." Behind him I heard Emily's footsteps. Then she appeared in the hallway. The second she saw me, the color drained from her face. "Daniel." I held up a hand. "No," I said quietly. "Don't start yet." For a few seconds nobody spoke. 3 adults standing in a silent hallway, pretending reality wasn't obvious. Finally I asked the simplest question possible. "Emily, I thought you were with Jessica tonight." She hesitated. "Well, I was earlier." That was lie number 1. Because Jessica had already told me she hadn't seen her. So I nodded slowly. "Interesting." Then I turned to Mark. "And you said you were relaxing at home." He swallowed. Yeah, I was. Lie number 2. The thing about lies is they fall apart quickly when you apply pressure. So I stepped inside the house. Mark didn't stop me. "Let's try something different," I said calmly. "Let's tell the truth." Emily crossed her arms. "Daniel, you're overreacting." Classic. Deny first. Minimize second. Gaslight third. I'd seen the pattern before. Just never in my own marriage. "Okay," I said. "Let's use logic." I pointed at Emily. "You told me you were with Jessica." Then I pulled out my phone and showed the messages. "Jessica says she hasn't seen you all night." Emily said nothing. I turned to Mark. "You told me you were home relaxing." Then I gestured around the house. "Which technically is true, except my wife is here with you." Silence. And that's when the tension in the room snapped.